The gig economy doesn't just refer to Instacart shoppers or Uber drivers. Such less than full-time employment has infiltrated our dental industry as well, and this has both up and downsides. You should be aware of both. A gig economy job can be daily, weekly, or any part-time schedule amenable to both prospective workers and their employers. Such gig workers, the upside for them is schedule flexibility, allowing for a better work-life balance. Continuing interest, as the gig worker can switch employers whenever they choose, and even the ability to travel or work remotely as one of the new gig nomads. So for example, a parent can choose to work only when their child is in school and not to have to arrange or pay for exorbitant childcare expenses necessary in a standard 9-to-5 job. Depending on their job, for example, the gig worker were in charge of updating records or confirming appointments in your dental practice. It is possible the gig worker might even work from home, avoiding childcare expenses and commutes. Or say the gig worker wants to travel. They can undertake limited projects for your office, such as refreshing your website, and then move on to another dental practice in another state and do the same for them. Perhaps someone training for a marathon with a committed workout schedule can come in mornings only as a temporary consultant to help you streamline your office process, leaving instructions for your more permanent office workers, and spend afternoons whittling down their time for their upcoming 5K. So what downsides are there for such gig workers? The gig worker must constantly solicit new clients or projects and manage their time accordingly. There is no reliable paycheck for them without a personal oversight. The gig worker doesn't have a consistent work environment either and must be adaptable to different office cultures. The lack of social connections built up over time with their clients' full-time staff might be a disincentive too. But the biggest pitfall in gig work is the lack of benefits. Gig workers must manage their own paperwork, pay quarterly taxes, and have no access to the employer's benefit packages, including insurance, which is very expensive for freelancers like a gig worker. On the employer side, the gig economy has historically been given a bad rap. Permanent employees are deemed more reliable, better trained, more efficient, and less of a management hassle all around. Gig employees are the bane of the human resource department due to their hard-to-track working hours, lack of paperwork, including proof of Social Security and immigration, and a distinct void of background vetting and previous work references. When remote work is thrown into the mix, equipment must be provided and tracked and returned at the end of a gig. And someone must provide oversight to make sure the gig worker is actually working while they are at home or working remotely from somewhere else. There is generally more babysitting involved in managing gig workers. But on the plus side for employers, gig workers usually cost less, with the exception of high-priced consultants. As they're paid hourly, though their time cards must be checked for padded hours, a gig worker can also fill in gaps in a full-time workforce, sometimes at a moment's notice. If COVID or flu sweeps through your office, there are administrative gig workers to answer your phones and look up records, and even gig hygienists working around the country, like the popular trend for traveling pharmacists and nurses. You can keep up on your clinic schedule temporarily, or even use gig workers for long-term projects. As long as you keep their work hours under 40 hours a week, the federal cutoff that defines a full-time employee is 32 hours. At Midtown Dentistry, we do make use of a hybrid model. We have permanent full-time employees that form the backbone of our group, bringing their historic knowledge of our culture and process. Gig workers fill in our temporary or short-term needs, thus helping us keep our employee costs under control. One caveat is important to point out to you. You must observe potential gig workers closely, noting the differences between those qualified professionals who choose to become gig workers for their own reasons and those who have become gig workers because they lack work ethic, have sloppy execution, or an inability to grasp the instructions they're given to properly perform the task at hand. These are people who can't get a full-time job, and so they turn to be gig workers as a quick fix. These gig workers may work a week, a day, or not even show up at all, wasting your full-time staff's time and therefore costing your practice money. Learn to discern between the hit-and-run gig workers and those who are productive professionals, and hire the latter. Properly chosen and utilized, gig workers can provide a creative way to save money, fill in staff for needed tasks, and help your practice keep humming along.